So I'm responding to a comment about ESFJs and INTJ are not dualities, and that's socionics, not Myers-Briggs. However, that derived from cognitive psychology, and I guess probably didn't explain it very well in my first video. I was getting used to being on YouTube, and I'm sorry my camera's going to show you this backwards because you can't see anything forward, but whatever, maybe one day that'll get fixed. I don't know. I'm using my onboard camera right now, and I need to get me a new one that has better quality. But right now I'm just using my onboard camera for my HP computer. So, my cognitive will, once again, so the INTJ sits right here, okay? Now, you can look this up so you can see a better view of it, but it is color-coded to show you, okay, when you look at the cognitive science, you see that an INTJ is T-E-N-I, right? Or N-I-T-E. So that's this part, okay? So this and this is what the INTJ covers on the cognitive will, because they are N-I-T-E, okay? That's the and then also they are F-I-S-E, okay? So the INTJ covers this portion of the cognitive will and this portion of the cognitive will. That's exactly half of both cognitive wills, both the outer and the inner, right? The ESFJ sits right here. The ESFJ is F-E-S-I, okay? They cover this half of the cognitive will, and they are N-E-T-I, so they cover this half of the cognitive will. Now you can see why they're dualities. They each cover and complete the cognitive will. If you look, an INTJ's cognitive, 8 cognitive, to get the INTJ cognitive, you go backwards on the ESFJ. Because what is in the shadow function of the ESFJ is in the primary function of the INTJ, vice versa. That is how they are dualities, not because of socionics and this new psychology. I haven't really looked into socionics. I don't know if I want to, because I like following Carl Jung's work. This is done by Carl Jung and Myers-Briggs, and they did it back in the day when they had less to go on, and this was thoroughly studied. They didn't have break times where they go play games and what. This was their life. This was their study. They spent their days and their nights. They didn't work an 8-hour day. They spent their days and their nights doing this. This was their life. And back in the day when you didn't have video games and TV and radio and all that, you plopped your life into stuff like this, and that's what they did. And so I believe in the older works more than the newer works. But I will look into socionics, I guess, maybe, I don't know. But you can see, so say Dawn's an INTJ and I'm an ESTJ, okay? Let's just say that for a second. So that means I would be T-E-S-I and cover this portion of the will, right? And that means he would still cover this portion of the will, right? But none of us would cover this portion. And I would cover this portion of the will, and he would still cover this portion of the will, leaving these two uncovered, which means these two are our weaknesses in our relationship, and these two are our strengths because we both covered them. So when you're not a duality and you look at the cognitive will, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see your strengths and your weaknesses. So our weaknesses would be a T or a TI and an FI. And our strengths would be FE and TI, and our strengths would be, so that's how it works. It's not socionics, it's cognitive theory. It's in the cognitive theory. I cover half the will, and he covers exactly the other half the will. We literally are two halves that make a whole. We're two halves that make a whole cognitive will. You can look up the colored cognitive will, Google it. It's actually, you can find it and look at it for yourself. Plug in your personality type, your significant others. See if you're dualities or if you're where your strengths and weaknesses are. And I have done this for a couple that I met in the store. and I emailed him and I told him my position on his relationship based on his strengths and weaknesses, and he sent me an email back, said, "You're fairly accurate." So that made me happy, because my study of this cognitive will, not socionics, this cognitive will is actually fairly accurate. My interpretation of it. I'm not saying that Carl Jung and Myers-Briggs works are fairly accurate. I'm saying my interpretation of their works has been fairly accurate. And so that's basically, it's not socionics, it's cognitive science. Cognitive science. And whoever put this will together, that was fabulous. I don't know if it was Myers-Briggs or if somebody's studying Myers-Briggs, but this is awesome, because I looked up Carl Jung's 4 types, 4 cognitive types. It's in Carl Jung's work. If you go to the library, you can get Carl Jung's book. It is a book called Jungian Theory for the Beginners, and it talks about these 4 types. I took these 4 types and I put the wheel on top of it, and you know what? It perfectly matched up. These are intuitives, feelings, sensing, thinking, and that tells me that Myers-Briggs was correct in her work, because it did perfectly fit into Carl Jung's work. When you get books on his work and her works, and you can put it together like this, that means that they both are right and that they did their job and they did their work. And this, I don't like this socionics, because like, this is the new, new age stuff. I don't like the new age stuff, because that means people just start interpreting things the way they want to. And I read a little bit on socionics before this video, and maybe that's where people are getting confused and going, well, I am INTJ because I ignore people. No. Lots of I's and a few E's ignore people, okay? I tried to ignore people at work, but I can't. But it's just because you're an INTJ does not mean you avoid people. INTJs love people. Just like I said in my last video and a couple videos ago, my husband doesn't go around anybody who criticizes him, who will be critical of him, who will make fun of him. Negativity, they don't like that. They stick with people that relate to them, and that's the biggest thing about the INTJ, the relationship. You don't relate to them, you're just going to always be an acquaintance to them. Oh, I knew them once and blah, blah, blah. You have to relate to them and do stuff with them. And sometimes, okay, being the wife of an INTJ is a little bit hard and frustrating, because I relate to him, but he doesn't always give it back to me. He doesn't always come back and relate to me, which sucks, because I feel like, it's a hard, because I want what I give out back, but I don't always get it back. But that's not every INTJ. It's hard to explain. I guess I'll find a way to explain it on one video. But just because you do something doesn't make you that personality type. I watch the way people make decisions, the way they talk to others, whether INTJs in a conversation will wait to be heard. And if they're never heard, that's okay. If you're like me, an ESFJ, you constantly interrupt. And especially when somebody says something, you don't care if they're done with their conversation. You're going to interrupt. And so that's one difference between an INTJ and an ESFJ. It's not that the INTJ doesn't like people. They're very patient people that don't need to interrupt. And Dawn is like, well, if I don't get to be heard, that's okay. I don't care. They're just people that I'll never see again, And he easily writes things off like that. But all INTJs, they're going to have at least that in common, where they're not going to interrupt. They're not going to interrupt a scene that's going on. They don't interrupt the ESFJ trying to be the center of attention, and they don't try and talk that. If somebody in a conversation doubts what they say and are arguing with them, they're not going to talk that. They're not going to try and prove them wrong. They're going to walk away and laugh at you with the people they relate with. They're going to walk away with the one that they relate with, and they're going to change the subject. Actually, they probably are not going to focus and laugh on you, actually. They're going to change the subject and be like, whatever, and then, you know, they don't put a ton of focus like my type does. We put a ton of focus on, I should have said this and I should have said that, and, you know, darn it, you know, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to say it, because, you know, I can't leave, you know. The INTJ, they're the J type that needs closure, but they need it in a different way because they are an N type and not an S. They're an NT type and not an SF type. SF types need closure more now because they can't stand walking away and having people, you know, so that's a huge difference. That middle letters play a lot of role on the end letters, how you treat things. So so I see people on the socionics board blogging about, well, they have a poll up on socionics. What personality type will get addicted to games? What if you are an INTJ or whatever, INTP, ENTJ, and you were raised in a family that went snowmobiling and biking and all that, and learned how to tile and whatnot, and never played games, never put a moment into games? Does that make you not that personality type? If they say, oh, it would be the ENTJ, they get hooked to social games because they're the thinking, judging type, but they're extroverted and want to be on those social games and talk, whatever, and lead groups. They want to lead raids in World of Warcraft. You know, does that make you not an ENTJ because you never played games, never put a value on games because your parents raised you differently? No, that does not make you. You're still an ENTJ. You're an ENTJ with a different type of addiction or whatever it is, or because you've been raised that way. You've been raised to not be part of this new technological age that does everything online and stays at home. Instead, you're taking your kids to soccer and blah, blah, blah and all that. Does not make you. So, and that's what I don't like about socionics. Seeing that poll, that was dumb. That was really dumb, in my opinion. In my opinion, that was really dumb to see a poll like that. To generalize personalities like that. Personalities have a little bit of generalization and preference on how they act and think, but that's not everything, because you still have nature versus nurture, your environment, your workplace. I've seen strong I types be the most outgoing person in the workplace, and you're going, I'll tell them straight up, I think you're an I type, even though the way you're handling things right now and talkative and being all, you're an I type. I know you're an I type. There is a way to tell the difference between the I and the E type. And even though an I type is being outgoing, because I've seen a lot of I types take leadership roles and be very extremely outgoing outside of work, and you would not think that they were I types, but you gotta listen to what they say. And you got to be able to read between the lines. You got to be able to read their body language. You can go online and you can get your personality type, but if it's got to fit you. I personality typed this guy at work the other day. He's the most confusing. He gave me the most confusing test results ever. And I pegged his personality. I picked one for him, and it was none of the ones that Myers-Briggs and Cognitive Quiz said he could be. I looked at their results. I looked at his behaviors and his decisions he has made during the week and a half we were in training together, or more like a week. The week I've gotten to know him. And I handed him a slip and said, is this you? And out of all the 10 things I had listed, he'd only disagreed with the very bottom one. And I said, that's what I thought. And I went over each bit and said, this is why I think that you're this way. And we went over it step by step, and he completely agreed. because you can take the test all you want, and usually it's pretty darn accurate. But sometimes, especially when you're like him and you come out with a cognitive NENITITE, it was weird. I'd never seen cognitive stuff stuck together like that. There's supposed to be NI over here and then in your shadow function, not both in your primary function and both the T's in your shadow function. That's so I'd be looking more into his cognitive quiz. But I have a nature versus nurture. I have a couple solutions why I think, and I'm not going to say that I'm not going to say it on a YouTube video. Why I think, because that's personal. It's personal to him, personal to, so I'm not going to say everything about why I think his turned out the way it did, but I was still able to look at the results, talk to him, see why he got those results, and then say, this is your personality type. And so, socionics, you can't put personality types in a quiz and group them together like that. Some people may be INTJs, ENTJs, ENTPs, whatever, and never grown up putting value on games or technology. It depends on where you live. People who live in more rural areas who grew up farming may not care about getting addicted to games because they have a job to do and other things to do. Oh, this video's getting long too. Oh my gosh, I'm putting long videos up. I didn't want to. I wanted short videos, not long rants. But anyways, I'll look more into socionics, but that's my view on socionics. Is I hate the way I'm already seeing them group personalities together like that. It's giving people the wrong impression, wrong idea. Look at Carl Jung's work. Look at Myers-Briggs' works. Look at the cognitive wheel. Study it, understand it, apply it. Like I have done. Alright, it was good talking to you guys. I got 3 kittens napping on my lap now. I don't think I'm getting up off this chair. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.